Hello there. This is a Boker red jig bone Congress pattern slip joint in C75 steel. I've done some looking online to try to understand what C75 steel is, and the closest I can get to understand is that people are comparing it to 1075 or 1095. Specifically, what I read about this steel is 10 years or 20 years old. So I don't know whether the composition of this steel is the same as those older steels, but it's a carbon steel blade, and it should be a very nice steel for these types of knives. This came from, if I did not mention it, Wayne Bean. And he asked me, he said he's interested in seeing me sharpen the little pin blade on this, so we're going to do that. But this is the stone under here. I want to talk a bit about this stone. This is a Norton Washita stone. Now, this is not the lily white or rosy red vintage pike Washitas. This is a newer stone. I'm not exactly sure when this particular stone was mined, but it has a type of coloring and modeling effect that, to me, reminds me of the old 70s Smith's Washitas that you got sometimes. This is a fantastic stone. This is also a gift from Wayne Bean. This stone, though, is unique. This is no vaculite like an Arkansas stone is. But this stone, I don't consider this stone an Arkansas, but I do consider it a really close cousin of the Arkansas stone, because this stone has a couple of unique characteristics that I really, really like. But it took a long time. This was given to me a while back, but I wanted to work on the stone a bit and kind of form my own idea of what I think it's good for, or what I think it can do, or just get familiar with the stone so that when I pull this brand new stone that I've never used before out, and I'm not familiar with them. I've never owned a Washita. This is the first one that I've owned. Now, if I get lucky enough or blessed enough to find an old pike Washita, I'll grab it and compare the two. But for now, this is all the Washita that I know. And this has the same characteristics as those old stones, but I don't know. I don't have a way to compare. All I'm getting is what I'm reading online about those old stones. This stone cuts really fast, but it leaves a polish on your knife or a scratch pattern, rather. I wouldn't call it a polish. But it leaves a scratch pattern on my knives that's equivalent to looking at like a Waterstone at maybe 1,000 grit or maybe even 15 grit. But it cuts really fast. But it's like an Arkansas stone. It's immaculate. So it's polishing at the same time. That's why I'm getting that 1,000 grit looking finish on it. The other characteristic of this stone that kind of, set me back was that it does not matter how I dress this surface. It cuts the same, and it leaves the same polish or the same finish on a blade, whether I'm conditioning it in a low grit or a high grit. Doesn't seem to make any difference to the knife. Another problem, when I first got this stone, I put a Ontario Knife Company version of their version of the military Marine Corps knife in 1095, and those knives are saber ground, and they've got a pretty thick edge on them, and they're decently hard. And I put it on this stone, and it was cutting really fast, and it was polishing really fast, but I couldn't get it to bring a burr up no matter what I did. And so I was talking to Wayne about it, because he asked, I expect he gave me the stone, and he was really anxious to see me sharpen on it. But I had to get to know the stone first. Anyway, I said, yeah, it's a great stone. I said, but I can't get it to bring a burr up. And he said, well, I never tried that. Let me try that. And he went and got... Basically, I believe he said it was a traditional slip joint. I forget which one it was. But in the meantime, I pulled out one of my slip joints and started sharpening on this knife. And lo and behold, that burr was forming. And he got back to me. He said, I don't have any problem with the burr. He told me the knife he was using. And I the only explanation that I can come up with about how it was acting on the Marine Corps knife is that it is an evaculite. And they have the characteristic of sharpening, cutting, and polishing pretty much at the same time, particularly the harder Arkansas stones. And I think what was happening is the edge on that Marine Corps knife was so fat. Matter of fact, I've thinned that edge out quite a bit. But it was so fat that what I think was happening is it was cutting, and while it was cutting, it was polishing, and it was basically polishing away that burr before I ever got to see it, because I got a scalding sharp flipping edge on the knife. So, I mean, that's the best I know to explain what went on. So what we're going to do is we're going to sharpen this. If I can get it open. I opened it just fine off camera. But now that I'm on camera, it doesn't want to open. So, I see how you are, big boy. But you're opening. Because I'm smarter than you are. So, we're going to sharpen that up. And we're going to use this Washita. And we're also going to talk a little bit about sharpening technique. Because I'm going to use something a bit different. When I have been teaching you what is basically a very simplified version of the burr technique, or the burr method of sharpening. There's a reason that I taught you that way, because that single pull, bringing the knife, sitting it back down, finding that bevel angle again, constantly doing that, and pulling the burr, which I've already got started on one side, flipping it over, doing the same thing. Well, on the other side, what that does, it does a lot of things. It teaches you how to find that angle. It works on your muscle memory, so that if you follow that technique, you begin to learn. And there's a pretty severe recurve in this blade here at the heel. Anyway, your hand begins to naturally fall because you built up muscle memory. So your hand will begin to naturally fall at that angle. So you end up not having to even think about it over time. It's also a very easy way to learn to sharpen, because if you pull that burr all the way on both sides and then work the knife until that burr comes off of it, you will have a sharp knife, period. But also feeling for that burr. Teaches you what sharp feels like, so that you can run your thumb along the length of that blade like it's sharp as snot right there. But when I get to about here, it's kind of sharp. That kind of thing. So it teaches you all of that. And then the last reason, or there were a couple more, but you know, we're on camera now and I can't remember them. But the last one is that it breeds success really fast. And the biggest thing, in my opinion, that will encourage you to continue to sharpen is to be successful at getting an edge. So, but you don't have to do that method. If you understand how to keep that angle, and if you understand what it feels like when you have a sharp knife, okay, a sharp edge, you can do exactly what I'm doing here. I'm not looking for a burr. I'm not trying to form a burr. Now, I'm going to look for one because I want it to be sharp. And I want to make sure that at the end of the sharpening, the burr is gone. So the knife will cut as best as it can. And there's a piece of wire burr that just came off of there. But this method doesn't tend to actually form a burr as readily. That's almost sharp all the way down. If you know what it feels like to have a sharp edge, and you know how to hold this angle, you don't have to chase a burr. You can just go one side to the other, like what I'm doing, until your knife gets sharp. That's just another method. I have had friends in my life that this is the way they sharpened a knife. They were never taught to chase a burr, or if they did, they stopped doing it a long time ago, and they just did this. Both methods work, but I really think that burr method that I taught you early on opens the door for you to be able to move on to different types of sharpening. I'm going to I stopped with pressure, so I'm going to add a bit. Because this stone, probably similar to most Arkansas stones, although the only Arkansas stone I ever use pressure on is a soft. And it's rare that I do that because the stone generally cuts the way I want it to. So, but this stone responds really well to a bit of pressure. And I am gonna see if I can straighten that just a bit. Because I think that it's interfering with the sharpening of the blade. Now, if I turn it to the other side, you can see there's still kind of a bit of curve in that edge. So what I'm going to do, right now, I believe I have the blade corrected where I need it. I'm going to lighten up on the pressure. And sharpen the blade. This steel is fairly hard. But is it burn? Because it's acting. It's acting like it's kind of got a little burr, but because it's shaving on this side. But it's not shaving. Yeah, it is. I don't know what. All right. All right, what I did was I took the sheet of stone and washed it in hot soapy water, and I've got it sitting over there now. Normally, when I start on a lower grit stone to bring the knife to sharp, then I will move to a soft Arkansas, but that stone cuts finer than a soft arc. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move up to the next best thing. That's a hard Arkansas. And the thing of it is, hopefully you will enjoy the video. It's going to be long. These little pen knives, when I was a boy, the old fellas that carried these knives around, this pen knife, they took a great deal of pride in having an incredibly sharp pen knife. Got a flying something or another here. Well, I don't know where it went now. And they would finish these to pretty high grit. And there's another important thing to mention. I started out not looking for a burr, but I ended up drawing one. And the reason I did is that I was having a difficult time. I was having a difficult time getting this part of the knife sharp because of the recurve that was in the blade. And so I had to correct that, and then so doing it raised up a burr. You need to be flexible when you sharpen, so that if you run into problems, if you know how to correct things, like I had to correct the edge on this blade. But whatever it is, if you know whatever it is that needs to be done, do it. Come out of whatever technique you're using and go to the one that you need for what it is that you're trying to do, because I mean that's what you have to do. And you need to understand and learn that, look, just because I said to someone else or to myself, this is what I'm going to do here, that technique is not working because of this, that, or the other. And I need to switch out my technique so that I can get the best from the knife that I'm sharpening. This is a gorgeous stone as well, this hard Arkansas. Just an absolutely beautiful stone. Whoa, gotta watch that. I almost lost my finger open. Alright, so now I think that's good enough. And what I'm going to do, like I said, the old timers that I knew, that knife, that blade right there was something They wanted sharp. You have to excuse me. This stone needs to be cleaned before I put it away. This is something, I'm going to harp on. So now what we're going to do, like I said, we're going to move to this. Because I want a really fine edge on that blade. Just for me, look, I don't know if this was the old fellas around where I was, or whether it was a regular thing, or anything like that. I just know that where I grew up in Georgia and Alabama, this was a thing. And I'm going to honor it. And I always have. I'm going to go to this translucent arc. And polish this edge. That's very nice. All right. The edge of this, it's screaming sharp. And it's got a beautiful polish on it, but it still kind of feels like it has a wire on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it some chromium oxide paste. That should be enough. I don't want to. That's a lot better. A lot better. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to strop plain leather. Alright, I don't have a whole lot of paper. This is like sticky note. But let's see. The knife is so tiny, it's not cutting all the way through the width of the paper. That'll work for me. Lovely. Beautiful, beautiful knife. What I want to do now, though, is I'm going to put some oil on this knife. I don't know if the Norton oil, well, this is mineral oil. It's refined mineral oil, so it should work just fine. And you notice I'm not putting like 500 pounds of oil on these blades. It doesn't need it. So back strap. So that's the Boker Congress. I'm satisfied. That's a really nice sharp blade. If you want to see me sharpen the rest of these blades, let me know. I may do it anyway off and on. I'm going to have to sharpen them in order to carry this blade. And I cannot wait to carry this blade. It's flipping gorgeous. Anyway, thanks for coming along either way. Bless you, and I'll talk to you later.